I never imagined that the unraveling of my entire life would start with something as insignificant as a tiny scrap of foil. I always pictured dramatic confrontations, explosive fights, or a shocking revelation broadcast across a family gathering. Yet there I was, in the faint early light of my apartment in Seattle, staring at a glimmering circle on the bathroom floor. It was a Wednesday morning. The room was half dark, the blinds allowing only a thin stream of sunlight to slice across the tiles. I froze for a moment, unsure whether I was about to step on something sharp. The foil was small, barely larger than the tip of my pinky, perfectly round. My mind immediately jumped to one thought. Pills. Clara, my wife. She hadn't mentioned dropping anything, but it wasn't uncommon for random bits of packaging to end up scattered around. Kneeling down, I picked it up, my fingers trembling slightly. One side was blank, the other stamped with a letter and a number. My heart sank. Today's foil corresponded to a day that should have been irrelevant to either of us. I didn't take any medication. I was 36, in good health, and the only things I ever consumed regularly were vitamin supplements and the occasional aspirin. Clara, to the best of my knowledge, was the same. Her last checkup had been clear. The doctor had praised her fitness and overall health. So why was there a tiny piece of pill packaging on my bathroom floor? My mind raced. Could it have been a stray? Perhaps something she'd accidentally dropped. But the reality clawed at me. The only time we'd ever had these daily pill packs in the house was years ago, back when Clara was on birth control. After my vasectomy, something we had agreed on to prevent more children, she had supposedly stopped taking them. Yet now, in my hand, I held a tiny foil circle meant for a daily pill. A chill ran through me. If she was still on the pill, what could that possibly mean? Either she doubted my vasectomy's effectiveness, or she was seeing someone else. I wanted to confront her immediately, but a strange instinct stopped me. I couldn't act without evidence. My life had always revolved around precision and logic. Engineering demanded it. I couldn't gamble on suspicion. I needed proof. After cleaning up and returning the foil to its original place, I drove to work trying to immerse myself in the contracts and project designs that had once consumed me. But my thoughts were dark, spiraling around possibilities I didn't want to confront. Within an hour, I was scanning catalogs for covert cameras, voice recorders, and home DNA kits. I needed facts, unassailable evidence, before facing the truth. If Clara had been unfaithful, I needed to know everything: who, for how long, and whether the two children I loved, Ethan 5 and Lily 3, were truly mine. The thought that they might not be twisted something deep in my chest. Still, logic demanded patience. I ordered discrete cameras, micro voice recorders, phone cloning software, and DNA test kits. Days dragged on as I planned the meticulous observation of my own home. Clara went about her routine as usual. There were no signs, no sudden evenings away, no altered habits, no change in intimacy. Everything appeared normal, almost too normal. I began to doubt my own judgment. Had I imagined it? Or was she simply careful, far more careful than I could have anticipated? Finally, my packages arrived at the office. I waited until the weekend, pretending to leave early for a light schedule. With the apartment empty except for the children, I installed cameras in the bathroom, the living room, and our bedroom, the areas most likely to betray the truth. Once the kids were asleep, I swabbed their cheeks for DNA, carefully masking the significance, pretending it was a silly game. I swabbed myself as well, mailing the samples to the lab. Results promised within 48 hours.
Clara returned from work, chatting about trivial matters: the kids, dinner plans, TV shows. Her demeanor was normal, almost comforting. yet it made me feel like a stranger in my own home. That night, while she showered, I planted a voice recorder in her car and cloned her phone. Nothing incriminating appeared at first. She had been cautious, leaving no trail behind. Then Saturday night arrived. I was cooking dinner when I noticed something odd. She emerged from the bathroom, went to the bedroom, and typed on a second phone I hadn't cloned. A secret phone. She carefully concealed it in the air vent. My heart raced. Every interaction I'd observed, every phone message I'd checked, had been filtered. I waited, patiently, methodically. When I finally accessed the second phone's data, the confirmation struck me like lightning. Explicit messages detailed clandestine meetings, intimate acts, and secret jokes about how easily I had been deceived. The text spoke of a man who remained unnamed, working closely with Clara, scheduling encounters around my business trips. I sat at my desk, tears streaming, shaking with anger and betrayal. My secretary, Monica, found me like that, hunched over, and silently handed me tissues. She had been my confidant in many office crises, but this was different. I told her everything. Surprisingly, she listened, calm and collected, offering practical advice. Gather more evidence, understand the situation fully, then decide the course of action. Lawyer Lorraine's office became my sanctuary. I learned my options. Do nothing, file an amicable divorce, or go nuclear with an adultery claim that would devastate Clara and protect my assets. Fury drove my decision. The nuclear option was the only acceptable path. We would build a rock-solid case, starting with the cloned phone. I began securing my finances. Consulting my business attorney, I restructured my assets, transferred liquid funds into the company, and prepared for a complete legal maneuver. My partners were informed. Everything was set to shield the company from marital claims. Then came the DNA results. Both children were not mine. The revelation shattered me, leaving me hollow. Rage, despair, and disbelief collided inside me. Monica guided me through each step, reminding me to stay focused. The private investigator confirmed it. The man Clara had been seeing, her longtime colleague, had been at the apartment that night. Our son greeted him as Daddy. My heart broke anew. The legal battle unfolded with precision. Divorce filings, lawsuits against the colleague's employer for violating policies, claims against Clara, every move calculated to protect my future and punish deception. The house, the assets, the company, everything was legally fortified. Clara's manipulations unraveled rapidly. The au pair, previously complicit, was dismissed. Clara lost control over the narrative. When she confronted me, I was resolute. No discussion, no excuses. I severed ties and reclaimed my life. In the aftermath, I grieved for the children, for the years of trust and love that had been stolen. But slowly, clarity returned. Monica remained a steady presence, professional, supportive, offering both comfort and guidance. Weeks later, the divorce was finalized, Clara removed from my life. The colleagues' transgressions exposed and settlements in place. Financial security restored, emotional closure achieved, though a lingering ache remained for what I had lost. It was in that quiet, painful aftermath that something unexpected happened. Monica, always present, leaned in, not professionally this time, but personally. A kiss, firm and tender, sparked a flicker of hope. For the first time in months, I felt the possibility of new beginnings. Life, unpredictable and cruel, had offered me a chance at something genuine. And for the first time, I allowed myself to imagine a future unshackled from deceit, one where trust, love, and honesty could be rebuilt. The morning after the divorce was finalized, I woke to an empty apartment that no longer felt like home. Sunlight streamed through the blinds, cutting through the silence. Clara was gone. The echoes of our life together, the laughter, the arguments, the routines had vanished overnight. And yet, amidst the emptiness, there was a strange clarity. The chaos, the lies, and the betrayals had been distilled into something simple: truth.
Of normalcy. There was no romance, no pretense, just a friend who had been quietly watching over me, ensuring I didn't fall apart completely. I spent the morning going over the legal documentation once again. Lorraine had been meticulous, ensuring every I was dotted and every T crossed. The settlement against Clara was finalized. She had no claim over my company or assets. Bill, Clara's colleague and the biological father of my children, had been forced to settle financially, thanks to an alienation of affection suit and violations of his company's non-fraternization policy. The law had delivered justice, but my heart remained raw. Monica watched me closely as I went through the motions of tidying up my temporary room. "You can't keep reliving it," she said quietly. Her voice carried the weight of someone who had seen the aftermath of deception before, who understood the danger of letting grief become a cage. I nodded, but the truth was I wasn't ready to let go of the anger. Not yet. That afternoon, I ventured out for the first time alone since the divorce. Seattle's streets felt both familiar and alien. Every storefront, every corner reminded me of the life I had lost. I found myself wandering to the park where Ethan and Lily used to play. The swings were empty. The carousels still turned lazily in the wind. I sat on a bench, watching, feeling the emptiness more acutely than ever. My children's laughter had been stolen from me, not through any fault of their own, but by the deceit of another. And though I knew I couldn't undo what had happened, I also knew I had to find a way forward. By evening, I returned to Monica's house. She had left me alone for a few hours, knowing I needed space, yet she had prepared dinner. Simple, comforting food: salmon, roasted vegetables, and rice. We ate in silence, the quiet more restorative than conversation. Afterward, she suggested we take a walk. The city was quiet, the kind of calm that seemed almost too fragile, yet necessary. We walked past familiar neighborhoods, each streetlight a reminder that life continued, even after betrayal. A few days later, I returned to my apartment, not to reclaim it, but to collect what I had left behind. Clara's belongings were gone, the house empty and sterile. The memories clung to the walls like dust. I boxed up my own items, deciding to sell the place eventually. He was too intertwined with pain, a monument to trust shattered beyond repair. Monica helped, her presence steady and reassuring. She didn't offer empty platitudes. She simply ensured I didn't collapse under the weight of nostalgia. One evening, as I went through old files for the company, I stumbled upon emails between Clara and Bill. The meticulous records, carefully hidden in her personal accounts, revealed the full scope of their deceit. For months, they had coordinated schedules, hidden messages, and meetings, all while I trusted and provided for them. The evidence was infuriating, but it also strengthened my resolve. The betrayal was complete, yet now I had control I hadn't had during the years of lies. Monica suggested I channel my anger into something productive. "You have the company, the assets, the legal victories. Now, build a life that's yours, not theirs, not the past, yours." Her words, simple as they were, struck a chord. I began making plans, restructuring my company to expand internationally, hiring new teams, investing in projects I had postponed for years. Every move was both a step forward and a reclamation of my life. Weeks turned into months. I settled into a routine that, while solitary, was purposeful. Early mornings spent at the office, evenings at the gym or walking through Seattle's quiet streets, and nights immersed in strategy and planning. Monica remained a constant, professional at first, then gradually, subtly, more personal. She never pressured, never forced closeness, only offered steady companionship. Then came the unexpected. One afternoon, I received a call from the DNA lab.
an update against a client I hadn't remembered submitting. But it was a false lead, a simple clerical error. Still, it reminded me of the fragility of trust and how easily life could be thrown into chaos. I hung up and took a long walk along the waterfront, watching the ferries drift lazily across the Puget Sound. The city's movement contrasted sharply with my own sense of stasis. I was free, yet bound by the scars of betrayal. It was during these months that I began to notice changes in Monica. Small gestures, a hand brushing against mine when passing documents, a lingering glance when she thought I wasn't looking, a quiet concern in her voice when I was lost in thought. I fought against the growing awareness. I wasn't ready. I didn't want another woman tied to my life yet, but the warmth she offered, the stability, and her unwavering loyalties started to chip away at my defenses.
One evening, after a long day of meetings and strategy sessions, I found myself confiding in her. Not about Clara or Bill, but about my fears, my regrets, and the haunting image of children I would never raise. Monica listened, offering no judgment, no advice, only understanding. It was the first time in years I felt the weight of grief start to lift, replaced by cautious hope. Then came the moment that would change everything. Late one night, after reviewing quarterly projections, Monica approached me quietly. "You've been through hell," she said softly. Her hand found mine. "You deserve someone who sees you, really sees you, and has been here all along." I froze. My mind raced. Part of me resisted, clinging to caution, the remnants of betrayal still fresh. Yet another part, a desperate, longing part, recognized the truth. She had been my anchor when everything else had collapsed. She had seen me at my lowest, without judgment, without pretense. And now she was offering something I hadn't dared to hope for, a chance at real connection, built on trust and honesty. Her lips met mine, gently, deliberately, not rushed, not forceful. It was a kiss that spoke of patience, loyalty, and quiet affection. I felt a spark of emotion I hadn't known I was capable of feeling again. Relief, hope, and something tender, fragile, and new. I kissed her back, letting go of the weight I had carried for so long. We spent the next days cautiously exploring what could exist between us. Our interactions remained professional at work, but outside, small moments of intimacy began to emerge. Shared dinners, quiet walks, and conversations that lasted into the night. Each day, I felt the burden of the past lift just a little, replaced by cautious optimism for a future I could shape with someone who had never betrayed me. Even as life began to regain a semblance of normalcy, the past lingered at times. Memories of Clara and the children I would never raise haunted me, a reminder of what had been lost. Yet Monica's presence reminded me that trust and loyalty still existed in the world, that not every relationship ended in heartbreak. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to believe that I could rebuild and perhaps even find happiness again. And so, the months passed, the legal battles concluded, the settlement secured, and my company thriving. Monica and I grew closer, cautiously navigating a connection forged in shared experience and resilience. I had faced the worst of human deceit and emerged, not broken, but wary, wiser, and slowly opening my heart to the possibility of love again. The city continued to move around me, oblivious to the personal battles that had reshaped my life. Seattle's skyline, the ferries, the endless streets, all reminders that life continued, relentless and indifferent, yet filled with potential for those willing to embrace it. And as I looked toward the horizon, hand in hand with Monica, I realized something profound. Though the past had been stolen from me, the future was mine to claim. Every step, every choice was a reclamation of life, trust, and love. I had lost much, but I had also found the one person who had never betrayed me, who had stood by me, and now was offering a path forward untainted by lies.
The following weeks moved in a strange rhythm. My company was thriving under the new structure I had implemented, and yet my heart still felt raw from the betrayal I had endured. Monica was a quiet, steadfast presence, always nearby, but never imposing. I began to realize that healing wasn't a linear process. There were moments when anger surged back, memories of Clara and the children who weren't mine crashing in waves. But there were also moments of peace, small pockets of life reclaimed, thanks to Monica's unwavering support. One afternoon, Lorraine called me with an update I had been dreading. Clara had appealed aspects of the divorce, attempting to contest the settlements and claim additional support. I knew it was a legal tactic, a last-ditch effort to claw back what she could not honestly claim. Lorraine reassured me that the evidence was airtight. The recordings, the cloned phone, and the DNA tests left no room for ambiguity. Still, the prospect of court reopened old wounds. I spent nights poring over legal documents, ensuring there were no loopholes, no surprises. Monica noticed my exhaustion and insisted on taking me out for a walk in Green Lake. The air was crisp, the leaves turning gold and red. We walked in silence at first. Then she spoke softly. "You've done everything right. Now let life catch up to you." Her words struck a chord. I realized that I had been living in a constant state of vigilance, preparing for every contingency. Now it was time to allow myself to live, even if it meant feeling vulnerable again. Vulnerability wasn't weakness. It was proof that I was moving forward. The court date came sooner than I expected. Clara arrived, composed, but clearly shaken. Bill was nowhere to be seen. Lorraine had ensured he understood the gravity of the proceedings. The judge reviewed the evidence methodically, every recording, every phone log, every swab of DNA presented without error. Clara tried to object, but the weight of the proof was undeniable. The judge ruled in my favor on all counts. Divorce finalized, all financial claims dismissed, and Bill held responsible for the alienation of affection claim. Walking out of the courthouse, I felt a release I hadn't anticipated. The legal battle was over, the past formally severed. Lorraine met me outside, her hand warm in mine. We didn't speak much. There was no need. The world felt lighter, freer. For the first time, I allowed myself to imagine a life unburdened by lies. Returning to my apartment, I began the process of reclaiming my personal space. I sold the house that had once been a monument to deception. Every corner, every wall, carried memories of betrayal. I couldn't erase them entirely, but I could reclaim my life by removing the physical reminders. Monica assisted, her presence a steady comfort, helping me pack, organize, and finally close that chapter. As months passed, the slow rhythm of daily life helped heal the scars. Work demanded attention, friends offered distraction, and Monica provided stability. We began to explore our connection more openly, cautiously, yet with a growing warmth. There were moments of hesitation, of lingering doubt, but they were outweighed by trust and respect. One evening, as we walked along the waterfront, Monica stopped and turned to me. "You've carried so much," she said softly. "It's time to let someone share the weight. Let me share it with you." I looked into her eyes, seeing the sincerity, the loyalty, the patience that had been my anchor all along. I realized then that I had been looking for love in the wrong places, seeking validation in illusions. Monica had never deceived me. She had never faltered. She had quietly stood by, ready to help me rise from the ashes. I took her hand, squeezing it gently. "I think I'm ready," I admitted, my voice low. "Ready to trust again, ready to rebuild." From that point, life began to feel more than mere survival. I allowed myself small joys again, a quiet morning coffee, a long run along the city streets, an evening spent laughing over a shared meal. Monica and I planned trips, explored new hobbies, and slowly, cautiously, imagined a future together. Eventually, the thought of fatherhood returned, not as a loss, but as a possibility. The memories of the children I had believed to be mine were bittersweet, yet they reminded me that love could be complicated, layered, and sometimes painful. Monica and I talked about the future, about what kind of family we might build, and the idea of children, of trust, of loyalty began to feel attainable once more. Professionally, the company continued to flourish. I expanded operations internationally, hired new teams, and implemented projects that reflected my vision without compromise. The financial security I had reclaimed allowed me to invest in personal growth, travel, and experiences I had once postponed. Monica remained a constant companion, friend, confidant, and slowly the person I trusted most in the world. Years later, I would look back on that turbulent period with a mixture of pain and gratitude. Pain for the betrayal, the lies, and the lost years. Gratitude for the clarity that emerged, the justice achieved, and the unwavering loyalty of someone who had never wavered. Clara and Bill faded from my life, their shadows diminished by the reality of accountability. Monica and I built a life grounded in honesty, respect, and shared purpose. Love was no longer a gamble or a blind trust. It was a deliberate choice, a partnership forged through trials, proof of resilience, and the courage to hope again. I often reflected on the turning point, the small piece of foil, the first hint of deception, and the path that led me down. It was the catalyst for truth, justice, and ultimately personal rebirth. And though the wounds remained, they no longer defined me. They reminded me of what I had endured, what I had survived, and what I had ultimately chosen, to reclaim my life, my heart, and my freedom. The final chapter of that life was not one of revenge or bitterness. It was one of cautious optimism, built on integrity, loyalty, and the quiet joy of someone who had found a love that endured where deceit had once reigned. The past had shaped me, but it no longer controlled me. In Monica, I found not just companionship, but a mirror reflecting my own resilience. In myself, I discovered the capacity to rise, rebuild, and ultimately embrace a future that was fully, authentically mine. And that, perhaps, was the truest form of victory.